Hello, Jeff Schlitt here from Aginity again. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about configuring your connections and some of the more advanced parameters and some of the common connection issues people have when creating connections in Aginity Pro or Aginity Team. First, as you're looking at my screen, if I add a new connection, or in this case, I'm going to edit a connection, I want to talk a little bit about the specifics for each platform and how you can learn more and ultimately what's happening behind the scenes. So in this particular case, I'm going to deal with Snowflake. When we name our connection, that one's really a no-brainer. It's just the named connection that you'll see in the UI. The database driver, we talked about that in a previous video, but that's really using the specific version to get connected. What's important to recognize is that Aginity Pro and Aginity Team use JDBC drivers to connect to each database platform. Some of our platforms, like Snowflake, allow us to actually distribute and download those drivers. Others, like Netezza, you actually have to obtain those directly from the vendor. And in Netezza's case, it is nzjdbc.jar, or go to your DBA, who usually can distribute those as well. In most cases, you're going to see a host, which is the server you're connecting to, the database server. In most cases, that is just the fully qualified server name. Usually does not have things like HTTPS or anything like that in front of it. A username, password, and then a series of parameters depending on the database. Okay. What I want to really draw your attention to is the advanced properties. At the end of the day, whatever you are combining in here, it is constructing a JDBC connection string. Okay. And the advanced parameters are very specific to the database and the JDBC driver that the database vendor supplies. Let me walk through that a little bit. So I'm going to shift over to a browser, talk a little bit about the documentation and how you can get to some of this information. So first, if you navigate to documentation.aginity.com, you'll see all of our documentation for all of our products. Let's go into Pro. If you go here, there's a section here on configuring connections in Aginity Pro. There's a specific section in video on downloading drivers. Then there's a specific section for each database platform we support. Under here, let's go into Snowflake, you will see a section on advanced parameters. And typically, when available, we will provide you with a link to the JDBC specific documentation for that vendor. Hold that thought, I'm going to come back to it. Finally, down in the reference area, you'll also see down here a table that talks about what we've certified with for each platform. Doesn't mean that a version of the driver won't work. It means that's what we've regression tested with, and then the class name for that driver as well. So going back to the connections, if we go down to that Snowflake connection, click on Advanced Parameters, and then let's go navigate to Snowflake's JDBC documentation. What you'll see in here are these things called connection parameters. Every database has a little different set of parameters, and ultimately what it turns into is that JDBC connection string. Okay, so if you look at any of the examples in any of these vendor-specific documentation, what you're going to see is a connection string that looks similar to this. JDBC : the vendor, the server, the user, the database, and then a whole series of name value pairs. Okay, described typically by things like application string, query timeout number. Some of these, though, are really important. So for instance, if you are configuring Snowflake to work with SSO or any type of third-party authentication, there are specific parameters that you need to put in here to make that work. Okay, and you'll see in the JDBC connection string, you will reference certain things like that. Okay, now to do that, that's what those advanced parameters are for in the connection screen. So coming back over to Aginity Pro, what I'm showing you here is I'm using the schema advanced parameter public, and I'm setting the query timeout to Snowflake for 3,600 seconds or 60 minutes. You can add these all day long, and ultimately you have to make sure that you have the right exact parameter and then the value. And again, that JDBC documentation from that vendor will help you understand that. Okay, so the easiest way to do that is refer to the documentation from the vendor, and then spend time configuring this. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to open up a support ticket at support@aginity.com. We're here to help you as well. Thank you.